I know that all of our lives are busy, but if at all, anytime you have some extra time to want to do something for the church, we always can use helping hands in Bethlehem Village. And I know I mentioned it, but every Saturday for sure is going to be a work time, and I know some of that is your few hours of your own time that you get from all your week, but we would appreciate as many who can. And I I'm one of these guys. I hate, hate to wait to the last minute. I just hate that. I really do. And I know I've been involved in enough weddings that no matter how much you plan, that all that you try to get done ahead of time, there's always stuff that you got to wait to the very end to really finish up anyhow, and I understand that. But some of the stuff and the projects that we'd like to get done, I'd really love to get them done before December the 6th or the 7th or whatever the day is that we get started with that. I really would like to get a lot of that taken care of. And so if you have opportunity to lend a hand, and some have available time during the week, and virtually a lot of my time, I'm telling you, I mean, outside of doing other things every now and then that you got to do, but a lot of my time is going to be here at the church doing work. And so if I'm not, Rob is. So I'm sure he would always appreciate an extra hand to hold lumber or run a screw gun or doing whatever. And the way Jim Claypeck worked yesterday, we're just going to make him foreman. I don't know. He's quite the boss. He tried to accuse me of being a taskmaster or something, but I don't know. He was like an Energizer bunny. He kept on going. But thank you, everyone, for your help. And I know you do, and you have helped. Many have helped, and I've already alluded to that. But that is our preoccupied focus, and I want to do our best as we possibly can. Mark's Gospel, chapter 4 tonight. I don't think it's on. Is this on? It's on? I don't think it's on. It's not on. It's supposed to be, but it is not on. This is. You have this off? Huh? There. It's coming out of there, but nothing's coming out. The devil's in the sound system, I'm telling you. Huh? You're hearing it out of the floor monitor, but nothing's coming out of the speakers up here. What's that? They retired. So, by the way, this is a separate PR speech, but some things are wearing out, and we're going to have to look into getting some new speakers. And I can find some speakers that are not too expensive. Problem is they're the wrong color that I want. So there's always a can of spray paint. My wife's a Nazi when it comes to spray painting, so I don't know. We'll buy them and spray paint them or something to look better. But so we got that project to work on, and upgrade a few things. But everything you want to do or need to do takes money. I don't know about you, but sometimes you sort of run low. And but anyhow, that is a frustration. It's been a frustration. I think while I was gone, someone said it just kind of just quit once or just went out. So we're not sure what the problem is, but there's a problem. So, and then the computer decided to update or whatever, and it crashed this morning, and he came over again tonight and it crashed again, and Windows needs to upstart and restart and do whatever. So it's exciting. Technology. Bless God, let's go to the old-fashioned ways and forget all of that, right? Okay, let's turn the lights out. See, you only want to go so far as long as it's convenient for you. But anyhow, Mark chapter 4. My very first question I have on my notes tonight, frustration with a question mark. Ever been there? Let's read Mark chapter 4, verse 35 is where we will begin reading tonight. On the same day, when evening had come, he said to them, that's Jesus speaking to his disciples, let us cross over to the other side. Now when they had left the multitude, they took him along in a boat as he was, and the other little boats were also with him. There was a caravan of boats maneuvering across the water. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that it was now already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on a pillow. And they awoke him and said to him, Teacher, Master, do you not care that we are perishing? Then he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. But he, Jesus, said to them, Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith? And they feared exceedingly, and said to one another, Who can this be, that even the wind and the sea obey him? Master, do you care? You ever been at that place? You wondered? We're going to look to those questions in verse 40 that Jesus asked his disciples. Let's think a little bit. Frustration. What is it? What is frustration? How do you define it? Obviously, it is an emotional response. What we know it to be. What causes it? It can be from unmet goals, ideas, or expectations, either within yourself or with somebody else. Ever been frustrated? You wish something would get accomplished, wish it would be different, and it didn't turn out the way you had wanted it, and you went, frustrated. Is it worth it? Think about the emotional response of frustration. All the legitimate reasons why it could be, why it is it's happening. But I ask you, is it worth it? The preacher, you don't know. I've been there. I've been frustrated, okay? But I'm asking tonight, is it worth it? Valid? Yeah, we would probably say there's validity in my frustration. Is it beneficial? Probably not too much. Usually, frustration has a way of affecting others. No, we've been there, right? Everybody been there? Say amen. Oh, okay. What about disappointment? Anybody ever been disappointed? What is that? What is disappointment? What's an emotional response? It's an emotional response to various things. What causes it? Again, it's usually a negative result from a desired end. You're disappointed. You wish this would have happened, but it didn't. You wish when you took your car to get inspected, it was simply going to be the $25.99 or the $30 to get inspected. But I don't know about you, invariably, when I go to get it inspected, there's a few other digits that get added onto that number. It's not just simply put a sticker on, this needs fixed, that needs fixed, this needs change, you're going to need this. Disappointed, right? We've been there. Is disappointment, is it worth it? Probably, really, it's only if it points us in the right direction. Now, I use those two words, frustration and disappointment, for a reason, because now I want to challenge you to think something with me. Could Jesus' response in verse number 40 be a response of frustration or disappointment? Well, I know this is Jesus. This is God. He doesn't do anything wrong, and I'm not attributing of him doing anything wrong. That's not my point. But Jesus is also human. More than one occasion, I think there is, as you look at the response that Jesus has given, I wondered at times if he was not frustrated that they weren't getting it. Disappointed. Because he says, why are you so fearful? I'm sure he just was so pious, standing there in the boat, no wrinkles in his robe. Why are you so fearful? Really? You think he would ask this question, how is it that you have no faith? You think he just said, how is it that you have no faith? By the way, you know where they're at? They're out on the water. You know what was going on? There was a storm. Okay? Do you think they said, the disciples came to Jesus and said, Jesus, do you care that we're perishing? No, I think there was some emotion involved, right? I don't think I'm reading into that at all too far. Because I guarantee you, if it had been me out there and the waves are coming in over the boat, my boat's getting water on the inside, and I know water's not supposed to be on the inside of the boat, it's supposed to be on the outside of the boat, I think I'd raise my voice a little bit and say, we got a problem. How in the world can you be asleep, Jerry? I'd say that. I'd get a little emphatic about it. Okay? It's natural. And so Jesus responds, and then I can't help but wondering if he didn't look at those disciples. Why? Why are you so fearful? How is it you don't have any faith? What a perplexing situation. I want to look at these two questions, and then we're going to come back and conclude with looking at Jesus' response to the initial question as the title of the message. The first question Jesus asked was, why? Why? Why are you fearful? Why do you and I get afraid? What is it that causes fear? Obviously, there's the word fear that Jesus is referred to, and the fear that is mentioned in the very next verse, is a different type of fear. Because it says, when they feared exceedingly, that was in a reverential awe because of the power that Jesus displayed. But when Jesus was asking, why are you so fearful? It wasn't because they were in reverential awe of who he was. They were just literally afraid. So what is it that causes us to be fearful? When we think about that, and I'm looking at this account that the apostle has given to us. You know what? We become fearful when the storm is bigger than our control. That's when we become fearful. In other words, you can't stop what's happening. Because if you could, you would. If you could stop it from transpiring, you would. If we could alter the direction of things that is happening, you know what? We would do it. Right? I mean, if in all kinds of things that we face, the turmoils in life, the struggles in life that we face, the physical, the sickness and all that, man, if we could stop it, guaranteed I'd be stopping it. But fear sets in when the storm, whatever the storm is in your life, is bigger than what we can control. Fear begins to settle in because we don't know where it's going to take us. Okay? We don't know what it's going to end up. Fear. Fear happens when our abilities are inadequate to make a difference. Taking notes, that's number 2. We become fearful when our abilities are inadequate to make a difference. Fearful. More than one time I've counseled somebody around an altar or talked to somebody in my office or met in a restaurant and we talked about spiritual things and counseled, etc. And more than one time I hear the statement that goes something like this: I'm afraid. Why I'm afraid? I tried and I failed. I don't like to fail. I know I'm acquainted with it quite well, but I don't like to fail. I don't like to mess up. Okay? And that fear has a way. And so when we think about it, when our abilities are inadequate to make a difference, become fearful. You think they tried to scoop any water out of their boat? Think they got a little anxious of trying to do something to get the water out? What made them think that they were perishing? Because they couldn't stop the storm. They couldn't stop the wind that was happening. They couldn't stop the waves. It was coming. And all that they were trying to do to make a difference wasn't making a difference. And unless something happened, they're going down. The shortcomings of human effort. We probably all face them sometime or another, right? And we all have our own little list. We all have our own areas that we just struggle with. We may struggle in silence. Then if you're like me, you just blurt it out and everybody laughs with you. At least I hope they do. But we struggle. When all of our abilities are inadequate to make a difference, fear begins to settle in. Because we don't want to fail. We don't want to mess up. We've tried in the past. Can't get everything all figured out. And we get fearful. Builds in the frustration, but it identifies the situation. You know what else becomes fearful for us? And that is, thirdly, when Jesus seems disconnected from our reality. When Jesus seems disconnected from our reality. It's one thing about talking faith sitting in a church pew. It's one thing to sing the praises of God within an assembly of believers. I love to be with the assembly of the believers and hearing the praises and the worship of God. That's encouraging. That's enriching. What happened when it seems like God's a million miles away? Disconnected from the reality that you're in. Does God really care about my plight of my life? Does God really care about the frustrations that I'm encountering and the fear that is paralyzing my existence? And you say, where in the world are you finding all of that at? Jesus is asleep. Their reality of their world is there's a storm going on. And our expectation of what we had wanted to be met in God didn't get met, or isn't being met, or at least it's not being met by what we think it ought to be. And somehow we begin to picture Jesus, God, being disconnected from the reality of my world. He doesn't understand the rejection that I'm going through. He doesn't understand the overwhelming burden that I'm encountering. And we feel that or sense that Jesus is so distant from us. And fear begins to settle in. That maybe all that we've heard, said, and done isn't as true. Jesus said, "Why are you so fearful?" Why? Then he goes on to say, how is it you don't have any faith? How is it that you have no faith? Faithless. What is faith? Faithlessness. We know the Hebrews tells us that we have to have faith to please God. Can't please Him without it. So why is Jesus saying here, why don't you have any faith? Would faith make a difference? Would faith stop the storm? Would faith keep the water out of the boat? So what is he talking about here? Why is he challenging? And by the way, how many times did Jesus use this question or this response? Oh, you have little faith. Where's your faith? More than one occasion, that concept of a lack of faith or little faith or no faith, Jesus used on more than one occasion in illustration, in parable, and in teaching. He's using it here. So what is it? What is faithless? It's this. First of all, when we bring God into human boundaries. When we bring God down into the confines of us, that God is only as big as what we can make Him to be. It's really not faith. Bringing God down to our level of thinking, and I'm not talking about degrading His deity, but when we begin to in our thinking, we understand boundaries, don't we? We understand certain limitations. We understand facts, 2 + 2. We understand measurement. We understand confinement. And so, as long as it fits in with what we can understand, I get it. And then you talk about other stuff in learning or whatever, it's beyond what I can grasp. I don't understand that. So we dismiss it or whatever. Faithless is when we bring God into our human boundary. Putting God, if I can put it this way, and I preached a title about this long time ago, but putting God in a box. Because we can handle the box, right? We understand the box. It's this confinement right here. Even if it's a bigger box, but we bring God into this and say, this is where God has to operate. This is what God has to do. It's right here. Really? Is that really exercising the faith in God that He wants? Because the disciples couldn't take care of what was going on. They're fearful. Jesus, you need to be like us. You need to do something here. You need to help bail water, Jesus. Why sleep? How dare you sleep in the hour? Come on, we got to get going. Let's do something. And Jesus was brought down into their realm of who they were and their peril and in their distress. Let me just pause right here, and I should have mentioned this earlier. This is in the beginning part of their ministry. This isn't after they have traveled with Jesus for a long period of time. And so I want to be gracious, not trying to be hard on these disciples in a boat in the middle of a storm. Okay? I can relate, not completely, but I understand. Water and I aren't best of friends. I enjoy water, but there's certain limitations. Okay? So, but here they are. They're in this predicament, and Jesus is brought right alongside. Jesus is right into this and right there. And so faithlessness transpires when we put God that within our realm of thinking. But the Word of God tells us, my ways are higher than your ways. My thoughts are bigger and beyond your thoughts. Faithless. Faithless is when we question God's intention. Faith when we question God's intention. In other words, Jesus, how can you sleep? How can you sleep? How can you let this happen, God? If you're really who you say you were, if you really love us, you do something about it. Now you understand. God, if you're really connected with my life, you really care about it, you'll do something about this. When we begin to question God's intention, what are you doing, God? Seriously. How? What? Why? This is falling apart. That's going south. This is happening, and you're uprooting everything. I mean, wait a minute. I'm getting fearful here. Things are out of my control. It's out of my abilities, and I'm going down. What in the world? And you're asleep? And faithless is when we begin to question God's intention. What did they do to Moses in the wilderness? And those leaders. What do you do? Bring us out here to die? We'd be better off eating all those junk food in Egypt. That's leeks, onions, and garlic, by the way. Some of you got that. What are you going, God? Why are you allowing me to go through a period and a season of dryness in my life? Why are you allowing circumstance to happen that it seems like you're 1,000 miles away and you're disconnected from the realities of my life? Why? And yet I'm supposed to be on top and have faith? Lord, I can't quite see the picture here. I can't quite see what you're trying to teach me. Faithless. When we bring God into our human boundaries, when we question God's intention. And faithless is this: when our focus is more on us than a trusting in Him. Was the situation desperate with these disciples were in on the boat? Probably. I don't know. You know, it's the idea of going for surgeries and procedures and whatever. I mean, they're a big deal. If you're the one that's going underneath the knife, you're the one that's getting needles stuck into you and things that are happening. That's big. Who cares? I've had lots of needles, whatever. Well, God bless your heart. That doesn't mean I have to like them. You can go with it all you want. I'll be more than happy with you. So faith part then for me to be trusting God to exercise this, our focus needs to transition from me to Him. Now wait a minute, I'm just being candid here. In reality, that's not always easily done. When the winds are howling, the waves are high, and your boat is rocking. This desperate cry from these disciples, Master, do you care that we perish? Was that a message of trust in God, or was it a focus upon themselves? Not in a wrong way, but I'm talking about trying to answer why Jesus said, how is it you didn't have any faith? It's easy to be consumed by our problems, be consumed by our situations of life until they begin to influence and direct everything. That all of our decisions and all of our reactions and all of our emotional responses are a result because we're focused on ourselves. But preacher, that's where I'm at. I didn't say that's not where you were at. But faith changes the focus. Faith changes what we're looking towards. It doesn't dismiss of the fact you're sick. It doesn't dismiss of the fact that your bills are more than the money is. It doesn't change the fact that there's things about life that are out of our control, just like that. It doesn't change those circumstances. But what do I do in that time? What do I do in the midst of those storms? Faithless says, it's all about my storm. It's all about our storm. What are we going to do, preacher? I have this storm. Help me through the storm. And then they look in amazement when you say, well, you got to trust in the Lord. Really? Yeah, really. Our living by faith is a focus that directs our attention upon God. Was God aware of the storm? I'm pretty sure he was. God's aware of your storm? Yeah. I'm sure that he is. But where's our focus? Because our focus defines where our faith is. So if we're looking upon ourselves, okay, think this. If we're looking upon ourselves, symbolic of a faithlessness, and now we're all fearful because things are out of control, now we've just compounded the situation into a disappointment, a frustration that is beyond what we can handle. So coming back to this conclusion, or at least in conclusion tonight, ask ourselves the question that I began with, does Jesus care? Or Master, do you care that we perish? Again, I have three things. First of all, he woke up. He didn't have to. He could have fell into a deep sleep and they could have woke him up physically. But he woke up. He also spoke peace. He didn't have to, but he did. He made a difference. He didn't have to, but he did. And Christ's intervention into their lives, into their turmoil, into their near-death experience, in their perspective, made an impact in their life, and they were in awe for who he was, verse 41. How can this be? That the wind and the sea obey him? It was an intervention that made a lasting impression in their life. You see, our faith isn't built without a storm. Now, we want to have great faith. We want to say, oh, I want to have great faith. Woo! Faith is a great mustard seed to tell the mountain. But Lord, I don't know if I want the mountain. We want all of this great stuff that supernaturally drops into our life. But Lord, don't give me a storm. Lord, don't send any wind or waves in my life. Don't allow my little vessel to feel like it's sinking, Lord. Just save us. Don't you care? How dare you? I challenge us tonight. Your faith, my faith, is not built by fair skies and smooth seas. As much as we think we like nice weather. Our faith is built when the skies are dark. Winds are high. Life is difficult. That's when faith grows. You see, in this passage of Scripture, we see a collide of fear and faith. Collision. And in this point, in these areas in our life, when fear takes a hold, when fear is represented in many different ways and forms, I'm not here to define that particular storm, but you know what it is. You know what that's troublesome. When faith and fear collide, choose faith. Choose a reliance and a dependence upon God. Why? Because Jesus cares. Songwriter asked that question, does Jesus care? When I've tried and failed to resist some temptation. Does Jesus care when I've said goodbye to the dearest on earth to me? Does Jesus care? And he lists several things throughout those verses, and I've sung it more than once at different funerals. Because sometimes in those settings, people are as if, God, if you really cared, you would have spared. But I'm here to tell you, he answered those questions. The songwriter did in that song. Oh, yes, he cares. I know he cares. His heart is touched my grief. When the ways are weary and the long nights dreary, I know my Jesus cares. Dear church, tonight, I don't know the storms in your life. Sometimes you share with me and confide, and I'm honored that you do. I encourage you, because sometimes we just need to hear or share and allow another person to help bear the load. But whatever it is that you face, whatever it is that's going to come your way or has come your way, or whatever valley you're in or whatever tunnel you're walking through, whatever it may be, I'm here to tell you, God's interested in you. Your life, your circumstance, your turbulent sea. And he wants to speak peace. Got to trust in who Jesus is. Amen. Amen. Sing this with me. Oh, yes, he cares. I know he cares. His heart is touched with my grief. When the ways are weary, the long nights dreary, I know my Savior cares. Father, the affirmation of your word tells us over and over that you're interested in us and our needs. You've invited us to come. You've provided the means. The grace of God is sufficient. Our God supplies all of our need according to your riches and glory. You have taken care of us over and over, time and time and again. And yet, Lord, you understand our humanity. You understand our frustration. You understand our fear and our perplexities and the things that transpire. But Lord, would you help us? Would you help us to choose faith? Take hold of who you are. Trust in who you are. Don't lean in our own understanding. But Lord, put you first in all things. Acknowledge you and allow you to take us through the storm. Take us through the fire. Take us through the flood. Lord, purifying our hearts, strengthening our faith. Help us, dear God, in our walk with you. Everything that you do, we alone give you the praise tonight. You alone are worthy. It's in your name we pray. Amen. God bless you.